Everybody, and welcome to day 18, our second session. We are joined by my wonderful friend Mel Kettle. So for people that were at Louisa's session last week, where I explained the story about how VID19 came about, Mel is the third person in the trio of people out at dinner where we had maybe too much alcohol, or I certainly had too much coffee and was up all night and had the idea for VID19. So Mel's an amazing friend, but more importantly, she's an expert at communication that builds trust. She understands how to create strategies that have immediate, meaningful impact. With more than 2 decades of experience in strategic communication and leadership, and a unique educational combination of a Master of Business Marketing and a Master of Public Health, Mel is a valuable asset to leaders and teams that want to achieve real connection and sustained engagement. Clients rave about Mel's sharp insights, her ability to simplify the complex, and her capacity to mobilize people and ideas so that they can increase their visibility and influence. She is the host of the podcast This Connected Life and the author of The Social Association. Her second book, Connected Leadership, Starts With You, is due out later this year. And today, Mel, we're going to talk about how to disconnect to reconnect to shape your future. And can't wait to see where we're going. It's been a lot of connection over the last 12 months for very obvious reasons.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's such a pleasure to be here, especially after last year and the last 12 months we've all had with everything that's been going on in our personal worlds and our professional worlds and the world in general. So today we are talking about connection, and I say we because it will not only be me talking. I'd like to encourage chat if that's possible. If you're able to type into the chat box, then I would love to hear from you, because I just find that makes the conversation so much more interesting and engaging. And as we are about connection and I'm about connection, it just, let's connect with each other. So one of the things I'd like to ask is, what does connection mean to you? If you've got a moment to type into the chat, that would be great. Because I'd love to know. I'm really curious. My podcast, This Connected Life, the first question I ask all of my guests is, what does connection mean to you? And I've had so many really broad and varied responses, but they all come back down to people. And as you've popped in the box, it comes back down to relationships, it comes back down to trust, respect, people who are your tribe, energy between people. One of the things that I've always been really surprised by is that with all of the people I've interviewed on my podcast, no one has ever said connection is about technology and the internet. And I must admit, when I first started asking that question, I thought for sure that would be what at least one person would say. Even the most technologically savvy, IT connected person still said relationships. One of my favorite quotes is by Brené Brown. Brené says, "Connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship." Now, I absolutely love that quote. And yes, it does. It does show, Lisa, that people need people, because we're all human. And I think that the most important thing for me in life is that human connection. The first time I really believed human connection could have such an impact was 1987. I was in year 12 and I desperately wanted to be a Rotary Exchange student. So desperately. I cannot even begin to tell you how much I wanted to do that. And not only did I desperately want to be a Rotary Exchange student, but I desperately wanted to go to Canada. And that was because we lived there when I was a child and we left when I was 7. And I don't know if any of you have seen the 7 Up series by Michael Apted. It's on SBS. in Australia. It's on SBS. And he talks about people who are 7 and the importance that life changes have on the rest of your life when you're 7 years old. I didn't realize this at the time. Obviously, I was 7, but now I look back and I think that was such a pivotal moment. And for a lot of my tween and teenage years, and I was a pretty horrible teenager and probably tween as well, I really resented the fact that we lived in Australia because I really wanted to know what it was like to grow up in Canada. And so my intense desire to be an exchange student was at the forefront of every single thing I did when I was in year 12. My biggest problem, though, about getting to achieve this goal is that when I was a teenager, I was phenomenally shy. I'm a natural introvert anyway, and by that I mean my energy comes from being alone and from solitude and from quiet time so that I can, recharge my batteries on my own in my own space. But I was also incredibly shy. These days I'm a much more social introvert, but then I most definitely was not. But I knew that if I was going to be accepted on this Rotary Exchange program, that I had to push myself out of my comfort zone and create connections with the people who were interviewing me and all of the others who wanted to win a part in this program. So I went to my first Rotary Club, or I went to the Rotary Club that was going to host me, and horror of horrors, I was not selected. They selected some guy. And I was gutted, absolutely gutted, but thought, okay, there'll be other ways. I'll get on with life somehow. And then a week before the big regional selection process where they chose the final people to go, I got a call from the Rotary Club and said the guy, whose name I should remember, but I don't, decided not to go. And so we'd like to put you forward to the next round of the process. And I just thought, wow, why would someone not want to go? But that was on him, and I had another opportunity. So I knew that in this full day selection process, where there were 4 big group interviews, and the rest of the time we had to mill around with the families and the other potential exchange students, I knew that I could not sit in the corner on my own with my nose in a book, which was probably really all I wanted to do. So I pushed myself out, I spoke to people, I created connections, and fortunately that all worked and I was selected to be an exchange student. We're talking about shaping your future through this conference, and I can categorically say that that year that I was a Rotary Exchange student in 1988 was one of the most defining moments in my life and shaped my future in ways that I could never imagine. And that was because the whole year was about connection. It was about connecting with myself and learning about myself and facing the challenges and the fears when there was no one around me who loved me and supported me, who had known me to help me. Bear in mind, this was 1988. I spoke on the phone to my parents twice that year, and I wrote them a letter every week, and I received a letter from them probably, I don't know, at least 35 times over the 52 weeks I was there. And so I really had to draw on my inner strength and my inner self to create these connections with other people. Life is certainly very different now with technology, because the last time I went overseas, just over a year ago, I spoke to my husband through FaceTime for free every single day, sometimes twice a day. So technology is really changing how we connect. And as we spend more and more time with technology, I think we sometimes forget that it's the human relationship that's the most important, not the technological side. Technology can facilitate connection, and technology definitely facilitates communication. But at the end of the day, nothing can take the place of that interactivity, that face-to-face, and that human touch. And so as we go through this session, think through, how often do you rely on technology over picking up a phone and talking to somebody, or meeting with somebody in person? And I know that COVID's made a lot of these things difficult, but there are still ways that we can connect in a more human way without having words on a screen or images on a screen through a video. As I mentioned before, I really believe that human connection is the single most important element of life. Maslow's hierarchy of needs has at the bottom of it physiological needs, food, water, shelter, and then he moves up through a few levels to self-actualization. But at the end of the day, if we don't have connection and a sense of belonging, then none of the needs, even the most basic needs, can be met or will be important. We're all so busy today. When was the last time you said to somebody, "How are you?" and they responded with something that didn't involve how busy they are? Busy seems to be the default for not thinking of other people, not putting ourselves first. And some people will say that busy is the new lazy. Not quite sure if I believe that, but I definitely think that busy is the new 4-letter word. And yes, it is like it's cool to be busy. Well, let me tell you, it is not cool to be busy. There are so many reasons that when we're busy, we forget about other people. We get caught up with our own lives, we get caught up on our phone, we get caught up on Zoom meetings, we get caught up with just stuff in general. And being busy means that we often forget to just stop and connect with other people. We stop to ask people genuinely, "How are you? What do you need? How can I help you? How can I serve you?" And I'm not just talking about people in our families or in our communities, but people at work and our colleagues at work. When was the last time you actually sat down with someone you worked with and had a meaningful conversation about something that wasn't necessarily work related? You listened to them, you asked them questions, and you observed their behaviour. Now, I know with COVID, and we're having a lot more of these conversations on Zoom and through a screen, it's a lot more difficult to actively listen, to ask questions, and it's certainly a hell of a lot more difficult to be observing people, particularly when you're just seeing this little bit of someone on a screen. You can't see their hands, you can't see how close they are sitting to you, you can't see all of their body language that measures or that can often help you determine how somebody is really thinking and feeling. But let's still make an effort. I suspect I'm at least the 27th person over this vid conference to mention this quote, but my favourite quote is this one by Maya Angelou. "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And Julia, later you can tell me how many other people have used this quote. I did debate finding another one, but I love this one so much. Amazing, my camera zoomed back into my face. That didn't happen last time. Why is that quote important? Well, from a business perspective, it's important because people do business with people they know, love, and trust. If we don't have connection, then how do we build trust? How do we earn trust? And if we don't have trust, what does that mean for our businesses? And not just our businesses, but our personal relationships. If we don't have trust, then what does that say for the state of our marriages or our intimate personal relationships with our partners or our relationships with our children or with our parents or with our friends? And as we disconnect from humanity to connect more with technology, I feel sometimes that the way we make people feel is being forgotten and that trust is eroding as a consequence. We face a lot of challenges today, which means that connection to ourselves, let alone connection to others, can sometimes seem hard. What are some of the, I'd love to know, what are some of the challenges that you're facing right now, either in personal life or in business life? And you're welcome to chat. You're welcome to put a few in the chat box. I know for me, the biggest challenge this year has been COVID. I'm the kind of person who needs certainty in my life. I don't care what the outcome is. So on Sunday, we had no internet for the second time in a week, preceded by, a few days of no internet because I was around Port Macquarie and there was no phone service of anything during the floods. But that was fine because we knew it would come right soon. But on Sunday, I rang our internet service provider and I said to them, can you tell me, please, what's the problem? We couldn't fix it. They said, I'll send a tech out to you on Tuesday. I went, great. And I stopped caring about the fact that we had no internet then because I knew that it could be fixed on Tuesday. That's what I mean by certainty. So the uncertainty that COVID has given us, and in Brisbane and in Southeast Queensland at the moment, there's a lot more COVID uncertainty because Brisbane's in a 3-day lockdown. I'm on the Sunshine Coast, so I'm not completely impacted, except that we're supposed to have a house full of people from Brisbane over Easter, and we won't know until tomorrow whether the lockdown's being extended, and it's meant to finish tomorrow afternoon. So there's just so much COVID uncertainty, which is a big challenge for heaps of people. Other challenges, you guys have mentioned some, and girls, sorry, hate the word guys. Loneliness, rediscovering what I truly want, strength to keep going. Yeah, it's really hard at the moment. Finding the motivation, not resilience after hearing Mike House's session. I need to go back and listen to that one. Making sure that my values are met with the work I do or in the field or in the work I find. Yes, that's just so important. Because when you don't have your values right and aligned with the work that you do, then how do you stay motivated? That's the question I've been asking myself a lot over my career. A few of the other challenges that we have today, and I've come up with these after speaking with a lot of my clients and with colleagues and with friends, increased pressure at work. COVID means that we're expected to do so much more with so much less, and not just COVID, but even before COVID. A lot of people I know are working many, many longer hours now that they're working from home. And they're not just working longer hours with their day job, but they've got kids to juggle, homeschooling to look after. Often there's elderly parents, and all of that is overarched by the worry about what if I get this insidious virus. Social isolation and loneliness is one of the biggest problems that we have in the world today. If you're wanting to know more information about that, then Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was the Surgeon General in the United States during Barack Obama's presidency, wrote this absolutely brilliant book called Together. It's one of the best books I read last year, and he talks about how he traveled around America when he first became Surgeon General, I think in 2016, and he was talking to people about what are your biggest health concerns. And the biggest health concerns obviously were getting cancer or drugs or ice or mental health issues. But he said underpinning all of those, and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, underpinning all of those was loneliness. And we know that loneliness is one of the biggest challenges that we face in Australia today, as well as in the US. 1 in 2 Australians say they're lonely at least once a week, and that's from research from Beyond Blue. Research by psychology professor Julianne Holt-Lunstead found that social connection is crucial to human development, health, and survival, and yet feeling disconnected and lonely is such a common issue that it has the same health risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So what is it that we can do to help combat that? The other issue with loneliness is that it leads to depression and anxiety. And depression and anxiety are the number one cause of long-term sickness absence from work in Australia. And yet, what are we as individuals doing to help combat our own loneliness and to help our staff and our colleagues and our families feel less lonely? There's research that's come out from Cigna recently that shows there's a really clear connection between work and loneliness, with 61% of respondents in their survey reporting they're lonely. What I found really interesting was that men are only slightly less lonely than women, and that younger people aged between 18 and 22 are more lonely than older people aged 72 and over. A study by RHR International that came out, I think, in 2019, found that more than half of all CEOs report being lonely at work. And I certainly know from some of my CEO clients who I mentor that they have said to me, I have no one to talk to. I'm so lonely in this job. I didn't think it would be like this. One of my clients said to me, I can't tell the board that how I'm feeling because I don't want to erode their confidence in me, and they've got the power to fire me if they think I'm not performing. I can't tell my staff because they look up to me, and I can't tell my partner, or I do talk to my partner about it, but she doesn't understand because she's never had a job like this. And so where do we go? And then the fourth challenge that I see we're facing enormously is a really strong over-reliance on screens, particularly this one. The average person in Australia owns 3.6 screens in their home, which I actually think is seriously underestimated because I counted up how many screens we've got, and we've got 16. And that includes my Thermomix, which is Wi-Fi connected, best gadget ever. But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screens in my office. I've got 3 laptops, a desktop, 2 other monitors, my phone and my iPad. So is it any wonder that, we spend time multi-screening and we forget sometimes to look up from the screen? Research out of the UK shows that 1 in 8 of us are addicted to our phones. And there's this thing called nomophobia. Nomophobia is the fear of being without your phone. I'm trying really hard now that we've moved to this beautiful location near the beach to go to the beach every day and to not take my phone. Of course, I do want to take amazing photos of the view, so I don't not take it all the time, but at least, half of my trips down to the beach, I leave my phone at home because I don't want that reliance. But every time I walk out of the house without it, I get this little flutter of, I don't have my phone. That flutter's becoming less over time, and I'm really happy about that. And when I talk about screens, it's not just a reliance on this little screen, but it's a reliance on things like Netflix and streaming services. And when I was doing a bit of research for this presentation, I was absolutely horrified to discover, and a little bit overjoyed because I do love TV, that Australia has over 20 streaming services. And that includes, all the catch-up TVs with the commercial networks, but also, Netflix and Amazon Prime and BritBox and Stan and Binge, and there's so many. There's a whole heap I hadn't even heard of. And they're so easy to get. We changed energy providers when we moved to Caloundra, and they said you can have this package or you can have this package with KO. And I said, what's KO? And they said, it's a sports streaming service. And I thought, my husband watches enough sport. I don't watch sport. We're not getting that one. Thanks very much. And I've not actually even told him that was an option. So if ever if you meet him, don't tell him that, please. And luckily he's at work right now, so he's not listening in like he often does. Reed Hastings, who's the CEO of Netflix, a couple of years ago came out and said, our biggest competitor is sleep. And I just thought, what? And he said, our biggest competitor, it's not Hulu, it's not Amazon Prime, it's sleep. At some stage, people have to turn off our service because they need to go to bed. That's why when you watch Netflix and you just have it automatically queued up to come to the next episode, after 3 or 4 hours, it will pop up with a message saying, do you still want to continue watching? Because they know that so many of their viewers fall asleep while watching. Not because it's boring, but because it's probably 4 a.m. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? So what can we do about it? Well, our phones and technology is designed to be addictive. And if you want to learn more about the addiction of technology, then this is stick it in front of my head. This is an absolutely fantastic book, Irresistible by Adam Alter. It's a New York Times bestseller. It was based on an article that I think he wrote in the New York Times. And he talks about how technology is designed to be addictive. Now, yes, technology is designed to be addictive, but I also believe that it's often it's often something that we pick up as a default, and we create a habit around picking up our phone so that we don't have to do things we're not interested in doing or we don't like doing. But I think we need to think through, what is it that we can do to break this habit? So just have a think through, how much time do you think you spend on your phone or looking at a screen each day? Just put it into the chat box. How many hours do you reckon? How many hours a day on average? Think about your work time, your home time, your before you go to bed time. 4 hours and 23 minutes. Julia, you've been in front of VID screens for a whole lot more than 4 hours and 23 minutes, because I'm not just talking about your phone, but all of the screens. 4 hours, 10 hours, yeah. The average Australian apparently spends about 12 hours a day in front of a screen, and that includes work, TV, phone, tablet. And between 4 and 5 hours a day of that is just on the phone. So I just want to do a little quiz. I just want to ask you, how addicted do you think you are to your phone? So you get 1 point for each of these. So either count on your fingers, you might need your fingers and your toes, or get a piece of paper and just make a check mark. So 1 point for each. You have a little panic if you can't find your phone. You use your phone as an alarm clock. You check your phone within 15 minutes of waking up in the morning. You check your phone the last 15 minutes before you go to sleep. You text and drive. Seriously hope that none of you put a mark against this one. You feel a phantom phone vibration when there is no vibration. My husband said to me the other day, "Why is there nothing on my phone? It's been vibrating." I'm like, "Honey, you've got the phantom vibration." He's like, no, it was real. You check your phone while undertaking leisure activities, such as reading, watching TV, watching a movie at the cinema. You check your phone while undertaking physical activities, such as at the gym, jogging, or cycling. And I don't mean listening to a podcast. I mean, you look at the screen and you look at social media, or you play a game, or you do something. I used to swim. I'd get out after 5 laps because I'd be bored. I'd check my phone. I'd go back and do 5 more laps. How bad is that? You check your phone less than 30 seconds after you've just checked it. You check 1 or more apps on your phone when you wake up in the middle of the night. You have at least 5 apps that you get notifications for. Might be email, might be social media, might be messaging apps, might be games, might be health news. You're distracted and you check your phone when notifications go off. You take your phone to the bathroom and you check it while you're on the toilet. 18% of men do this, 11% of women. I think people lied in that survey. I think it should be at least 80%. But the fact that more men admitted it, that's a concern to me. You've been on your phone and you've walked into something or someone. I have definitely done that. You check your phone in meetings. You spend, okay, this one might not be relevant now. You spend most of your time on public transport looking at your phone, either streaming video, scrolling through social media, or surfing the web. When you're eating a meal with family and friends, you constantly check your phone. And the last one, you're on your phone, you're just going to look at Instagram or play a game for 5 minutes, and before you know it, an hour has gone. So there's 18 things. I would love you to be brave enough to tell me how many you got. I will confess that the first time I did this, I had 18 out of 18. And that was before the really strict rules about your phone in the car came in. 16, 10, 12, 9. And yes, Elizabeth, we definitely do need to advertise that people need to sanitize their phones, not just their hands. 5, Tim, you win the prize. Congratulations. I don't have a prize, by the way, apart from my complete impressiveness of you. 6, yep, fantastic. So some of us are far more technologically connected or disconnected to reality than others. Do I have a rehab program? Actually, I do, Kate. Yes, I can help you with that. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do to become more connected to people? And more importantly, to become more connected to ourselves, because connection starts with us. The absolute first thing that we need to do to become more connected is to put our health first and to know what stress looks like. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of putting your health first. If you have not had a doctor's appointment for a general checkup in over a year, please pick up the phone when we finish this call and make one. If you have not had a skin check in over a year and you live in Australia, especially, and even more especially if you live in Queensland, pick up the phone and make an appointment and get a skin check. If you have not had a mammogram, a prostate check, a dental check, an eye check, a blood pressure check, pick up the phone and get those done. Your GP can provide advice on where you need to go if he or she thinks that you need any of these, but that is your first point of call. And I say this because I had a dodgy spot on my leg about 6 years ago, and I looked at it and I thought, oh no, I don't think it's anything. I think I'm imagining it. And then I had a dream that night that I died of melanoma. 7 o'clock the next morning, I was on the phone to my doctor's surgery. Can I come in? Went in, had it checked, and it was a level 2 melanoma. It was incredibly aggressive. The whole lot was cut out less than a week later. And when I went back to the doctor after Christmas, I was his last patient before Christmas. When I went back 6 weeks later, I said to him, thank you so much for getting it out immediately. And he said, it was really aggressive. It would have gone to a level 4 by now and you'd be dead by next Christmas. That is why putting your health first is so incredibly important. I'm completely okay now, thank God. The other thing you need to do is trust your gut, and you need to know what stress looks like. Stress can sneak up on you. When I was 29, I had a really stressful job. I drank a lot of alcohol. I ate a lot of junk food. I had about 5 hours of sleep a night, and my life was just work with a bit of sleep interspersed in between it. I went to the doctor's one day and he said to me, how are you? And I just burst into tears and I sobbed uncontrollably for half an hour. And he said to me, okay, we'll just, do a few tests. And he took my blood pressure and he looked at me and he said, I don't know how you're walking around. It is so incredibly high. He said, if you don't make some major life changes, you'll have a stroke before you turn 30. And my 30th birthday was about 2 months away. I'm now 51 and I'm alive and healthy. So clearly I listened to him. But I hadn't realized what stress looked like. I knew that I felt a bit stressed, but I hadn't realized the full extent of it. So I really encourage you to look at your life and get an understanding of how stressed you might be. And not only look at your life and understand what some of your stress signs are, but get to understand what it looks like in other people. So if there's people you love or you work with who are exhibiting signs of stress, have a quiet chat with them and think and, encourage them to get their blood pressure checked at the very least. And signs of stress, I think for me, it was drinking a lot of alcohol, drinking a lot of coffee, smoking too many cigarettes, which thankfully is not a habit that ever continued past that hideous job. I was shaking all the time. I had a lot of gut health issues. I went to the toilet a lot. I broke out in a rash quite often, and there were a whole bunch of other physical and mental things. I cried all the time, and I was borderline depressive. Symptoms that you can see in other people, in your staff in particular, and maybe in your partner and your friends, are things like missing deadlines, forgetting simple things, having brain fog. One of my staff used to always take every Monday sick off work. And that was a sign of stress because she hated what she was doing and she didn't know how. So observe patterns of behavior. And if people start acting in ways that aren't normal for them, then have a conversation with them about why that might be. The other thing we need to be doing to become more reconnected is we need to take control of our screen time. Because when we take control of our screen time, we create more time for us. The average person looks at their phone, for example, between 4 and 5 hours a day. You can't manage what you don't measure. So if you're not sure how much time you're spending on your phone, check out the screen time app on your phone and have a look to see what it says you're doing. When I first looked at mine, it was 6 hours a day and I was horrified. And I've worked really hard over the last 3 or 4 years to get it down to 2 hours a day. Of course, at the beginning of COVID, it skyrocketed right back up to 7 hours a day. And it was a hard slog last year to keep it below 5. But it is worth it because when you spend less time staring at a screen, your stress levels will automatically decline, especially if you spend a lot of time on social media. A couple of other things you can do: look at your screen time, and your screen time will not only tell you how many hours a day you're spending on your screen, but on your phone, but it will also tell you what apps you use the most. So for me, I was using Facebook all the time, and I just deleted it from my phone because it wasn't helpful to me. And I still use it. I still have it on my computer. Obviously, I still have an account. I do a lot of work in the social media space, so I need to use it, but it's not on my phone. The other thing I deleted off my phone last year when I was on holidays was email. And the relief that I felt by not having email on my phone was profound. Now, I work for myself, and so email is a way that people often communicate first with me when they want me to do some work with them. But I was sick of using email on other people's time. So think about how can you make it your time and not their time. I've never put it back, with the exception of 10 minutes about 3 months ago when I needed to confirm a meeting location that had changed. And I felt immediately pressured as soon as I put it back on my phone. So do a little experiment and see how you feel with that. A couple of other things you can do: if you have your phone in your bedroom for an alarm clock, get a different alarm clock. My alarm clock I've had since I was 12 years old. I can't believe it still works. It doesn't really work that well as an alarm clock, but it does work as a clock. Think about putting your phone in grayscale. If you love Instagram, if you spend lots of time on your phone randomly scrolling, having it in grayscale will prevent that because it looks really boring. And then finally, think about how can you have a tech policy? What might that look like for you at home and at work? So we have a very informal tech policy at home, and the number one rule, which has always been in place ever since I got my first phone in 1996, was no phones at the dinner table. When we eat together as a family, all technology is off. The TV is turned off, the phones are turned off, tablets are not on the table, because it is time for us to connect as a family. The other thing you might want to do with your personal tech policy is you might decide that you don't have particular apps on your phone, you don't have email on your phone, you might have dedicated parts of your home where you don't take your phone or your tablet. We don't have TVs in the bedroom, and we never have. And it's really rare that I'll watch something on TV or a streaming service on my iPad or my laptop in bed. Incredibly rare, because I just don't believe it belongs in the bedroom. You might also want to say, okay, Sunday afternoons, no screens. Every time I exercise, I'm not taking a screen. Whatever you want is up to you. And then in terms of work policies, you might have work policies of no phones in meetings. You might have an email-free Friday policy, which I know there's a lot of organizations starting to implement, and I love that. And then once you've done that, then think about what's important to you. Because when you prioritize yourself first, you look after your health, you look after your own well-being, and you take responsibility for your life. And we've only got one life. So why aren't we doing something that we love doing every single day? Think through, what is it that you can do that you love every day? What are your priorities in life? What's important to you? What's important to you today, tomorrow, and into the bigger future? What is it that you're going to do to shape your future? What is it that you're going to do today to make the space for you to do things that you really value and that you want to do? A colleague of mine at the beginning of COVID, and when Melbourne went into the second lockdown, I said to her, "How are you coping?" And she said, every night before I go to bed, I'm thinking, what am I going to do tomorrow that gives me joy? What can I do tomorrow that will put a smile on my face? And I plan it out. And so I go to bed looking forward to something tomorrow. And she said, that got me through the drudgery of lockdown. So my challenge to you and my question to you is, what are you going to do today and tomorrow and Friday and Saturday and Sunday and next week every day that gives you joy? And I love to set what I call the 30-day joy challenge. So if you're up for it, think about, what can you do every day that gives you joy? And it might be on your own, or it might be with someone else. Or it might just be, it could be whatever you want it to be. And if you feel up to it, share it on social media, share it on Instagram, tag me, use the hashtag 30 days of joy, and see how that changes. How does that change things for you? How does that make you feel more connected to yourself? And if you do things you love with people you love, how does that improve your connection to them? Because without connection, we won't have a future. And so what is it that you're going to do to shape your future today? Thanks.